All right, President Biden says he is hopeful an Israel-Hamas ceasefire could happen in the next few days. During a campaign stop in New York City yesterday, he said so. Watch this.
Can you give us a sense of when you think that ceasefire will start, sir?
Well, I hope by the beginning of the weekend. I mean, the end of the weekend. At least my national security advisor tells me that we're close. We're close. It's not done yet. And my hope is by next Monday, we'll have a ceasefire.
The president enjoying his ice cream there. The remarks coming as Israel and Hamas have sent officials to Qatar for proximity talks, quote unquote. Negotiators are racing to strike a deal before the beginning of Ramadan on March 10th, which is the deadline Israel set for its invasion of Rafah. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said yesterday that Israel's army presented its operational plan for Rafah to its war cabinet. He's also vowing that civilians will have the opportunity to leave the city ahead of any ground invasion. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Yeah, great being here, Maria.
You know, I'm not sure what to think, because President Biden says that we are close to a ceasefire, but that's not what Prime Minister Netanyahu is saying. And I'm wondering if the pressure from the United States is really what we're talking about here, or is this something that Netanyahu is actually considering without any release of hostages?
No, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu was implying that some progress was being made based on the two interviews I seen him make over the weekend. I mean, Hamas withdrew their unrealistic proposal, which was a permanent ceasefire, pull out all the troops from Gaza, and Hamas would pick thousands of prisoners to be released from Israeli jails. Those were all non-starters. They're no longer on the table. See, some kind of negotiation here is in both parties' mutual interest, and that's why I believe it will happen. Listen, Hamas is back on their heels. They've got 75% of their fighters are lost, either killed or wounded. Their tactical commanders at the lower and middle grade level have been devastated. Their principal leaders are still intact for the most part. But with those kind of losses, they need to reorganize and regroup and actually reposition. So some kind of ceasefire is in their advantage. And also, I think they're going to try to sneak some of these leaders out of Gaza, if at all possible, because their fate is pretty obvious. The Israelis is likely going to kill or capture them.
Oh,
and then from the Israeli perspective, I mean, they want the hostages back. They're likely going to get some of them, not all of them. And also, they know they got to get some kind of massive humanitarian relief into the civilian population, most of which, but not all of which, is in the Rafah area. So I think a deal is actually going to take place, and it's the right thing. But listen, so our audience understands this is not a permanent ceasefire. The IDF has got the mission, when this ceasefire is over, to go into Rafah. First, they're going to move the civilians out of there as best as they can. They have got to go after the remnants of the Hamas organization, the remaining 25%, and get as much of the leaders as possible. That is an absolute must. Hamas has already won strategically because of widespread international condemnation, which Israel expected. We cannot let Hamas win operationally, and they will if we leave 25% of their fighters intact and most of their top leaders. If they get that as a result, they will rearm and reattack, and that is not what Israel wants at all.
Of course, yeah. Well, that's great analysis as usual. Meanwhile, I want to switch gears and ask you about Lloyd Austin. The Pentagon reporting that it found no indication of ill intent or an attempt to obfuscate in its internal review of the handling of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's hospitalization last month. The 30-day review finds no one's to blame over the Defense Department's failure to disclose Austin's hospital stay to President Biden or Congress. Fox News Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin grilled the department about the gaps in the review and the transfer of power to Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks while Austin was in the ICU. Watch this.
Who was it who called down to the Deputy Defense Secretary who was on a beach in Puerto Rico and not say it might be time to come back, even without violating HIPAA and talking about what the Secretary's condition was?
When the transfer of authority occurred, The secretary's military aides notified the deputy secretary's staff that a transfer authority was going to occur. The deputy secretary had full access to all the comms that she needed to execute her duties as the acting Secretary of Defense. At no time was there any gap in command and control of the Department of Defense.
General, I see what they're trying to do here, but for the Pentagon to say nobody's to blame for, the secret hospital stay. I mean, look, we're at an incredible moment in time where our adversaries are on the march. He goes into the hospital, has a major issue, and doesn't tell anybody. Okay, there were no gaps, but can the Pentagon get away with just saying, well, there's just no one to blame here, on to the next thing?
Well, the first thing, we're fortunate that no adverse consequence occurred as a result of the snafu, and certainly the Secretary admits that he owns this problem principally himself, and he made the mistake, obviously, of not making sure notification was made, and he didn't get involved himself. But look, that document is full of legalese and bureaucratic language, and it's unfortunate. Of course there is people that are accountable that didn't make the phone calls. It's routine for staff in the Pentagon to call the other staff in the Pentagon when senior leaders are taking time off, going on vacation, or are ill. And also, obviously, based on who it is, to notify the White House as well. That is routinely done by staff. So somebody didn't do that. Now, who is that? That rose should have been pinned. Come on. When the military component of the Department of Defense does an after-action review, it's pretty straightforward. It's what happened, why did it happen, and what are we going to do about it? Direct language, fact-based, and pin the rose. Right. That doesn't mean we're going to terminate people. Right. I mean, everybody's well-intentioned here. Everybody works very hard here. But I think we have to have accountability so we learn from our mistakes. I mean, we're a learning organization. Learn from our mistakes and identify those mistakes.
Real quick, General, the president said he's putting all these sanctions on Russia on Friday. I know the oligarch Elena Baturina is not facing any sanctions. But do you think these sanctions are going to have any impact here in terms of Russia's aggression on Ukraine?
Well, the other sanctions that have been in place now for 2 years have had marginal impact for two reasons. One, the administration isn't tough enough in making certain those sanctions are enforced. That takes hour by hour, day by day, week by week enforcement to take this on. I mean, whether you're a Republican or Democratic administration, there's always a lack of enforcement by the parties you're asking to enforce, and you have got to stay on top of them. They're not doing that, so loopholes have occurred. The second thing is China, Iran, and North Korea are significantly helping Russia, much more than we expected them to do, and particularly China. Yes, the sanctions will have some impact, but if we don't stay on it and make sure they're being enforced, it's going to slip away from us like these initial sanctions have. Russia is flush with money. Their GDP growth was about 3.5%. Wow. That is pretty good, Maria, as you know. Their Defense Department is executing at 9% of GDP. That's double what the United States is doing. So the impact of those sanctions have been marginal at best.
And of course, that's because they're able to sell their oil and gas, certainly from Russia. General, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for all of the information on all of that. We appreciate your time, sir.